Before we start, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, listen carefully. In the quiet town of Umuahia, a little girl saw a rich man crying at her mother's grave. And what he did at her mother's grave made her face turn pale. The wind danced gently through the trees in Umuahia Central Cemetery. It was late afternoon, and the sky was soft and gray like old cotton. Little Chisom, just 8 years old, walked slowly between the graves. Her feet were bare, her tiny toes cold against the red soil. She carried a bunch of wildflowers, bright yellow ones she had picked behind the market. She had wrapped the stems with old newspaper. It was all she had to give her mother. Today marked exactly 1 year since Mama Nena passed away. Chisom still remembered how her mother coughed through the night, how her breathing slowed, and how one morning she didn't wake up. Since that day, Chisom had lived with strangers, sometimes with church women, sometimes with the kind market aunties. No one stayed long, but today she came alone, just like her mother had taught her to be, brave, quiet, and strong. As she reached her mother's grave, she suddenly stopped. A tall man was kneeling there. He wore a fine white agbada and shiny leather sandals. His shoulders were wide, and his back was shaking quietly. His hands, full of rings, held a small basket of white roses. He was crying. Chisom froze. She had never seen anyone else at her mother's grave. Who was this man? The man did not see her at first. His face was buried in his hands, and soft sounds escaped his mouth, like someone trying not to cry but failing. Chisom stepped closer. Her voice was small but strong. "Why are you crying at my mama's grave?" The man looked up, startled. His eyes were red. His beard was neat, his face handsome but tired. He stared at her with confusion. "Your mama?" he said softly. Chisom pointed to the headstone. "Yes. Her name is Nena Okafor. This is her grave. She was my mother." The man blinked fast. He looked at the grave, then at Chisom, then back at the grave again. That's not possible," he whispered. He stood up slowly, towering over the little girl. His agbada fluttered in the wind. "Nena Okafor," he said, reading the name aloud. "She was my wife." Chisom's eyes widened. "That's a lie," she cried. "My mama was never married. She told me we didn't need anybody else." The man looked like someone who had been punched. He swallowed hard and shook his head. "My name is Chief Ebuka Okafor," he said slowly, "and I think we both need to talk." The two of them stood there in silence. The cemetery grew darker, the wind colder. Chisom's small hands were trembling, but she held her chin high. Ebuka looked at her closely. Her nose, her lips, even the way she frowned, reminded him of Nena. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "Nena never told me she had a daughter." Chisom hugged her arms tightly. "She never told me she had a husband." Ebuka knelt down so he could look her in the eyes. "Where are you living now?" She hesitated. "Different places. Sometimes the church women take me. Sometimes I sleep near the market. I move around." His heart twisted. He had lived in a mansion for years. All the while, this girl, possibly his child, was living like a stray goat. "Have you eaten today?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not really. Just some bread yesterday." "There's a small eatery by the road," he said. "Let's go and eat. We can talk." Chisom looked at him with suspicion. "Why would you feed me?" "Because," he said with a heavy sigh, "if you're truly Nena's child, then maybe I should have fed you a long time ago." After a moment, she nodded. "I'm hungry. They walked to a local eatery, Mama Coco's Buka. Inside, it smelled of fried plantain and pepper soup. People turned to stare at the strange pair, a wealthy man with gold chains and a small barefoot girl with flowers. "Order anything," Ibuka said. Chisom looked shyly at the chalkboard menu. "Can I have rice and beans? With dodo?" "Of course," he replied, surprised by her politeness. She ate slowly, as if trying to make the food last forever. Ibuka watched her, full of questions. He had married Nena in secret 8 years ago, a quiet ceremony before she left for another town for a short work trip. She never came back, just vanished. He had searched, sent letters, even paid a detective. Nothing. "How long were you with your mother?" he asked. "All my life," Chisom replied. "We moved a lot. Mama always said we had to stay invisible." Ibuka frowned. "Invisible to who?" "She never said. She said it was better if nobody knew too much about us." Then she looked at him. "Did you love my mama?" He looked down at his hands. "I still do." After the meal, Chief Ibuka paid Mama Coco and took Chisom to his parked black SUV. "Where are we going?" she asked, gripping the edge of the seat. "To my house," he said. "Just for the night. You won't be safe outside with the rain coming." True to his words, as they left the buka, fat drops of rain began to fall. By the time they reached Ibuka's mansion at the top of Isiukwu Hill, the rain was pouring hard, beating against the tiled roof like drumsticks. Chisom's eyes widened as she stepped into the large house. There were shiny chairs, long curtains, and a staircase that twisted up like a ribbon. The lights were warm. The air smelled of fresh polish and something she couldn't name. Maybe wealth. "Is this where my mama lived with you?" she asked, standing in the middle of the hallway. Ibuka looked down. "Yes. For some time, until she disappeared." He gave her one of his soft shirts to sleep in and showed her to the guest room, a big one, with soft pillows and a window that looked out over the rain-soaked garden. Later that night, Ibuka stood in his study, unable to sleep. He stared at an old photo, him and Nena on their wedding day. She had worn a blue lace gown. Her eyes had sparkled, but she had left the next week and never came back. Why? A small knock broke his thoughts. It was Chisom in the oversized shirt. "I couldn't find the bathroom," she said shyly. "Second door on the right," he said, pointing. She nodded and padded away. Ibuka rubbed his face. His heart was heavy with questions. What had Nena been hiding? Why did she never tell him about Chisom? When she returned, he was in the kitchen making tea and some bread with peanut butter. Chisom climbed onto a stool and looked around. "This house is too quiet," she said. "I live alone," he replied. "Not anymore," she said simply. Her words made his chest ache. The next morning, Ibuka gave Chisom warm water to bathe and took her shopping. She needed clothes, shoes, everything. At the market, she pointed only to cheap items. "This one is fine," she said, holding up a plain brown dress. "What about this one?" he asked, holding a yellow dress with small flowers. She hesitated. "It's too pretty. What if I spoil it?" Ibuka swallowed the lump in his throat. "You deserve pretty things, Chisom." They left the market with 3 bags. Back at home, Chisom arranged her new things neatly in the wardrobe. Ibuka sat with his phone, fingers trembling. He called a private friend in the police. "Please," he said, "help me find anything you can about a woman named Nena Okafor. I think she was living under a false name, and I think she had secrets." The officer promised to call back in 2 days. That evening, Ibuka noticed something around Chisom's neck. A silver locket. "Where did you get that?" "Mama gave it to me before she died. She said, 'Don't ever take this off. It will protect you.' But it doesn't open." He took it gently, turned it, and there, on the back, were words carved in tiny letters. Protect what matters most. He stared at those words. I think your mama was hiding from something, he whispered. Chisom looked up. Then we must find out what it was. 2 days later, Ebuka's friend from the police called. She wasn't just Nena Okafor, he said. Her real name was Adaeze Nwankwo. She used to work with an anti-corruption group in Abuja. She testified against a powerful man and then disappeared. She was under protection. Why didn't she tell me? Ebuka asked, his voice breaking. She probably wanted to keep you safe. And your daughter, too. Ebuka ended the call, heart racing. He went to his bedroom, opened an old box, and pulled out a letter. One Nena had written to him before she disappeared. He had never opened it. Now, with trembling fingers, he did. My dearest Ebuka, if you are reading this, I am probably gone. Please forgive me. I loved you truly, but I had to vanish. They were looking for me. Bad people. I had a daughter, Chisom. I never told you because I feared for your life. But if she finds you, love her like I would. She is my heart. Protect her. Adaeze. Nena Ebuka sat on the bed weeping. Later, he called Chisom and held the letter open. Your mama loved us both, but she was running from danger. Chisom stared at the letter. She protected me with lies, she said softly. Ebuka nodded. And now I must protect you with truth. 2 weeks passed. Chisom started school. Ebuka enrolled her in Springlight Primary, the best in the area. He dropped her off each morning and waited outside the gate each afternoon, his heart softening more each day. One evening, she came home with a paper. It was a family tree assignment. She filled in her name at the bottom, then Nena Okafor above hers. But the rest? Empty. She brought the paper to Ebuka in the sitting room. I don't know what to write here, she said, pointing to the box labeled Father. He looked at the blank space. I don't want to lie, she said quietly. Ebuka looked at her carefully. I was married to your mama, he said slowly. But I'm not your real father by blood. Chisom's eyes stayed on the paper. But you feed me. You bathe me. You worry when I cough. You wait for me after school. She looked up. Isn't that what a real father does? Ebuka swallowed the lump in his throat. Yes, he said softly. Then, she said, handing him the paper and a pencil, you can write your name here. So he did. Ebuka Okafor. The next Sunday, they visited the cemetery again. Chisom placed fresh flowers at the grave. Mama, she whispered, he's taking care of me, just like you said someone would. Ebuka stood quietly beside her, a protective hand on her shoulder. Thank you, he whispered to the wind, for bringing her to me. One night, weeks later, Chisom was sketching in her notebook at the dining table. She loved to draw. Mostly homes, she remembered, places they had lived. She drew her favorite, a small one-room compound with a banana tree outside. She always wanted to settle there, she said, pointing to the drawing. Why didn't you? Ebuka asked. She got sick. Then we had to leave. Later that night, while she slept, Ebuka sat in his study with the silver locket in his hand. Something bothered him about it. He turned it, pressed gently along its edges. Click. A tiny lid slid open. Inside was a small SIM card and a folded paper. He unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. It had a name and number. Inspector Halima Dogo, Federal Special Force. Zaria Office. If anything happens to me, tell her everything. Ebuka stared at the note for a long time. The next morning, he called the number. They met the following day. Inspector Halima was tall, serious-faced, and kind. She listened as Ebuka explained everything: the grave, the girl, the letter, the locket. When he handed over the SIM card, she held it carefully. "This is evidence," she said. "Your wife helped bring down a big fraud ring 8 years ago. She vanished because those people wanted revenge. Some of them are still out there." "Are we in danger?" Ebuka asked. "Not anymore," Halima said. "But your daughter, she is a witness, even without knowing. If anyone ever comes asking strange questions, come to me." Ebuka nodded. "I'll protect her, with my life." Halima smiled slightly. "Then you've already done what your wife hoped for." Back at home that evening, Chisom was folding clothes. She held up one of her new dresses. "I've never had this many clothes," she said, giggling. "You deserve it," Ebuka said. She grew quiet. "You're not going to leave me, are you?" she asked. Ebuka knelt and held her shoulders gently. "Not today, not tomorrow, not ever." Chisom leaned forward and hugged him tightly. "Mama was right," she whispered. "About what?" "That the world is still good. You just have to be brave enough to find it." 2 years later, the headstone at Umuahia Cemetery had a new name added: Nena Adaeze Okafor, beloved wife and mother. A woman of truth, even in silence. Chisom stood beside Ebuka, now taller, stronger, and always smiling. Her hair was in neat braids. Her school bag had pins from all her achievements. They placed fresh lilies and wildflowers on the grave. "I drew your favorite house again," she whispered. "I live there now, even if it's only in my heart." Ebuka held her hand. "I adopted her officially last month," he said to the wind. "She's ours now. She always was." As they walked away, hand in hand, the sun broke through the clouds. The breeze carried the scent of hope. They didn't look back, because love had already planted new roots, and this time, nothing would break them. So we learned that even the deepest secrets, when revealed in love, can build stronger families. And sometimes, the people who are meant to protect you find you when you least expect it. Love is not always by blood, but by sacrifice. Besties, this one touched deep, didn't it? Imagine finding out you've been someone's home all along, even without sharing blood. Let's talk, bestie to bestie. Have you ever had someone choose to love you when they didn't have to? Or maybe, are you the one who chose to protect someone, even when it cost you everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. What does family mean to you after watching this? Do you believe love by choice is stronger than love by blood? We read every comment like it's a letter from home. If this story stirred your heart, don't just scroll. Share it with someone who needs to hear this kind of love today. Best watched with a warm heart and quiet room. Subscribe for more true-to-life African stories that remind us kindness is a seed and love always finds a way. Take care until next time.